And so thank you to Andrew, by the way, since the way we've been handling these remote meetings is vastly different from the way we do it in person, but Andrew's done a great job of navigating us through this.
Thanks very much, Dave. So we'll kick it off here. So just to start off, I am Andrew Golis, the town administrator. I'm going to ask that the members anticipated to be part of this meeting are present and can hear me. So when I call your name, just respond that you actually that you're here and that you can hear me. Chairman Dave Singer.
Yes.
Karen Spiewak.
Yes.
Bill Borowski.
Yes.
John McGrath.
Yes.
Deb Noble.
Yes.
This open meeting of the Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of the emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of coronavirus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law in all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are encouraged and are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you could find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law, but this meeting will feature public comment, which can be done by raising your hand or providing comment in the comment box provided. From there, the chair will recognize any comments that are coming forward. Any comments that do come forward, please go to the chair and take care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote in this meeting is to be conducted by a roll call vote to ensure proper recording of each. So from there, I will read off the agenda for tonight's meeting. So first we have the call to order, then the consent agenda and warrant approval as needed. We got a number of minutes to be approved at this meeting. The minutes of May 21st, 2018, June 4th, 2018, June 12th, 2018, June 26th, 2018, August 1st, 2018, October 2nd, 2018, May 30th, 2019, September 11th, 2019, and April 14th, 2020. From there will be our public open forum. No appointments or resignations at this meeting and no scheduled appointments. For new business, we have a discussion on the face covering policy, discussion on safety procedures for town hall elections and town meetings, featuring potentially members of the Board of Health and the town clerk. A proclamation for Children's Mental Health Week. Awards of the 2020 DPW guardrail bid and roadway materials bid. A discussion on the negotiation process and appointment of members for the fire chief and finance director negotiations. No old business is listed under this agenda, but from there we'll have other business that was unknown at the time of posting. And the next regular meeting will be May 12th, 2020. From there we'll adjourn to an executive session as per executive number 2 to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel. So from that, I'll turn it over to you, Dave, if you want to go through the minutes.
Sure. Now, is that your screen you're sharing? Your computer screen?
It is, yes. That's the agenda.
All right. So, are you going to scroll through that as I go through mine? And if the public is watching, because I assume they can all see that too, right?
Yes, they should be able to. I was just going to keep it on the agenda screen so that way people can follow along where we were.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So that being said,
Mr. Chairperson?
Mr. Borowski.
Unless the board objects, I'd like to make a global motion to approve minutes from May 21st listed through April 14th as written.
Second.
Any discussion? So hearing none, I mean, do we have to vote on that? I guess.
Yes.
Roll call vote. Mr. Borowski,
Yes.
Ms. Spiewak,
So I'm going to vote yes for all, but I have to abstain from June 4th and May 30th because I wasn't present. But otherwise, it's a yes.
Ms. Noble,
Yes.
Mr. McGrath.
C.
So chair votes aye. Like Ms. Spiewak, I'm going to vote aye. Without going through them, I'm going to have to rely on Andrew, though. I'm an aye on every one of them, except the ones where they had the mock town meetings that were during the day and I was at work, I could not attend. So the ones I couldn't attend for work, obviously, I'll be abstain on those, but I'm aye on the rest.
All right, very good.
Through the chair,
Mr. McGrath,
I make a motion that we approve all the minutes.
John already did that.
Oh, I thought
That was the vote.
Excuse me, I apologize. I thought that was just so that we
No, actually,
universally approve.
You know what?
Actually, I think
Second
John-
John, just to make him feel better.
actually, I think John's right. I think Bill's motion was that we take it all in by itself. Karen and I pointed some things out where we weren't there. So John made the correct motion to actually approve. We need a second.
You guys are killing me. Yeah. My second.
We still need a second.
Second.
Second. Or
Okay, we
third.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call vote. Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Ms. Noble,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
All right, perfect.
So now we're going down all the way to community relations. Let me scroll down. What page is that on?
Page 33.
I'm getting there. 32.
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Too far. Here we go. 28. Community relations and announcements. Is there anyone here for open forum? I suppose I'll ask just really quick. Put it in the chat box.
Yeah, so if anybody has anything that they'd like to bring up or ask a question, put it into the chat box.
And while we're waiting for anyone, if they want to do open forum, put it in the chat box. In the meantime, the announcements are the board has been invited to the second MMA COVID-19 briefing for the select board members and city and town councilors Friday, May 8th from 12 to 1 p.m. MMA Executive Director Jeff Beck will, it's a bad writing, but will provide members with the latest updates on MMA activities and the Baker-Polito administration's response to COVID-19. And MMA Legislative Director John Robertson will speak about the legislative response to this public health emergency. This briefing will be done as a Zoom webinar. This briefing invitation is for select board members, selectmen, and city and town councilors only. Please note, they have a limit of 1,000 lines for this call, and registration will be capped at that number. Andrew, please register me. Please register us. So it is best to register early. Please also be sure to visit the MMA website for real-time COVID-19 updates and resources. And any other select board members, maybe we can get a group on that. It's up to you. Charlton Candidates Night will take place this year on May 18th at 6 p.m. All candidates for office are being invited to attend either in person or by Zoom. This has not yet been determined. Our moderator is Steve Coleman, and he will be posing questions to the candidates. All questions should be submitted to Kathleen Walker, coordinator of the event, at kwalker4@mac.com. Questions will also be taken from the audience. The event will be posted on YouTube. Karen Spiewak will be the timer, and we hope to end by 8 p.m.
Through the chair, David,
Yes.
just wanted to update this announcement that the candidates night will indeed be via Zoom. There will be no one there in person for obvious reasons. So that that's been determined.
All right, so Zoom only.
Zoom.
And I can tell you from previous candidates night that Steve Coleman, obviously Kathleen had done this before, they do an outstanding job, and hopefully people will watch and learn something about the candidates. Absentee ballots are available for town election. Visit www.townofcharlton.net, the town clerk's page. What to do after completing the application: mail it to the town clerk at 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. 01507, or scan the completed application and email it to eric.tully, Tully, at townofcharlton.net. If you have questions, call 508-248-2249 or email again eric.tully, Tully, at townofcharlton.net. The new town election date is June 13th, 2020. The new town meeting date is June 15th, 2020. Property tax bills, tax exemptions, and tax deferrals are extended, the due date, to June 1st, 2020. And I believe that is it. And no one has typed any open forum questions. So we will move on to the first appointment or resignation, which is the appointment of the per diem dispatcher. Andrew?
Let's see, sorry, I don't have, give me 1 second, sorry.
So you want me to read
Through
it?
the chair, while Andrew's looking for his
Yeah.
documentation, if I could just expand on the absentee ballot comment, because I had a conversation with the clerk, because I had a couple of residents a little bit confused. She did clarify that the state has allowed the use of an absentee ballot application with no reason. Usually you have to have a reason, like you're away at college or you can't get there. But this year, because of the virus, that you can use it, and that's what they're using for like early voting, actually. So you can go on and you can get your application and you can send it in.
Thank you, Karen. Andrew, if you want, I can read the.
Yeah, if you could, sorry, I don't have that printed with me.
No, that's okay. Okay, so attached is a request from Police Chief Maxfield stating that due to recent promotions, there is a need in the Charlton PD for a per diem dispatcher, dispatchers. They have identified Tanya Martin as a qualified candidate for the position. Ms. Martin is a fully certified 911 dispatcher who currently works for the town of Paxton and has completed all required state certifications. She can start filling shifts after familiarization with our system. I, Andrew, would make the recommendation that the board make the appointment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do this by roll call vote again. Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Ms. Noble,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. And just so you know, I'm just going in order of the way your pictures appear on the screen. We're not
Well,
playing
perfect,
anything.
because I printed this off yesterday and forgot that one got added. Sorry about that one.
That's all right. That's all right. So then we go on to, we have no scheduled appointments. So new business, the face covering policy. Do you have that one, Andrew?
Yeah, so due to the ever-changing dynamics of the current health emergency, we issued the following policy modification last week. Until further notice, it's now required that all town employees wear a face mask while they're entering, leaving, or socializing in any common area of the town hall. There are a variety of opinions on the effectiveness of face mask coverings that people have had. However, this policy is being implemented out of respect of health concerns of all employees required to do business on site even during the shutdown. Additionally, we're adding a reminder that any in-person business must be conducted needs to take place outside of town hall. We've just sent that reminder to the employees during the shutdown. It's highly encouraged that employees continue to work remotely as much as possible during this time, but I've included a copy of the policy that was issued. I didn't know if you guys wanted to take some formal action to adopt that, or if you had any comments, questions, or recommendations relative to the new policy.
Andrew,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah.
if you'd like a motion, I'm happy to make one. I don't think we need it, but I mean.
Okay.
No, I agree. I think Andrew's done a great job, and I think that what he's done is put in place a system that's temporary and can be lifted at any time as the situation dictates.
Through the chair, this is Deb.
Ms. Noble?
Hi. It's my understanding that a lot of these policies can be implemented and also rescinded without board approval at this time. This is happening at multiple levels of government right now. However, I see I see no problem with us formally adopting it, and I appreciate Andrew bringing it forward to our attention.
So do we have a motion and a second to formally adopt? We have Bill's motion.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Sure, David, I have a
Yeah.
quick question. I think
Yeah,
it's a
shoot.
great policy, of course. But do we, and if it's in there, I apologize, I didn't see it. If we're requiring people to wear the face masks, will we be supplying them if the person doesn't have one?
Yes, Board of Health does have a number, has face masks in their disposal to hand out to anybody who doesn't have one available. And we've
Awesome,
made
thank
that known to the town employees that do have to be on site.
Great, thank you.
very good.
Thank you. Good question, Karen. All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none by roll call vote, Ms. Spiewak,
Aye,
Ms. Noble,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda then, Andrew, would be the discussion on safety procedures.
Yeah, so despite the challenges presented to us by the COVID-19 pandemic, we do need to begin planning for a recovery in a phased approach that considers the safety of our residents and staff while allowing us to conduct the necessary business of town government. It's clear that we'll still be dealing with this pandemic as we navigate through town election and town meeting. Attached, I've included a draft phased reopening plan for municipal offices, which is kind of still in its development phase, and I'm working with some of the department heads to try to get some more input on it before kind of making it official, especially with the extension of the governor's orders today of non-essential business for 2 weeks. We have a little bit more time to develop that plan. I have invited the Board of Health Director, Jim Philbrook. I know that he is currently still in the Board of Health meeting, and Town Clerk Karen LaCroix to discuss their recommendations on the best approach to handle the town election and town meeting. So Karen, if you're there, I'll unmute. There you go. I want to provide some input. I know we've had some discussion between you, me, and Jim about how we see some of the development of, or some of the changes we'll make to those two events. So I don't know if you want to give some sort of a overview on that.
Yeah, like you said, we're still kind of in the planning stages and trying to figure things out. I know with the elections division, town clerks have had a lot of questions, and we heard today that we will be getting an email from elections just to give us some guidelines on how few people, I guess, we can have working the town election. You know, we're not sure if we, you know, can have less people checking in, checking out type of thing. So we don't want, the way we usually do it, we have a table with one person facing the voter, checking you in, and then the person fills out their ballot and goes back to the same table to check out. We're not going to want those people sitting together. So, you know, we're thinking also, we discussed, instead of walking right up to the table, back off 6 feet and give your name and your address. And then go fill out your ballot, and then go to the back of the gym and check out and put your ballot in the box. But still some things to work out on the best way to do that. You know, whether we need the plexiglass on the table, they can't be, you know, built onto that table because they're at the school's tables. So it'd have to be one that we could, you know, bring with us. But talking today with Kirby, it sounds like what we're getting in town hall is going to be built onto the counters. So I know we had discussed taking what we had and using at the election. So I guess there still have to be some discussion if we need to purchase something. Then we had discussed using, kind of recommending to people to bring their own pens. If they can't, we'll provide a pen and then they can take it with them or throw it away. So everybody would get a clean pen. I think Jim had said that they can provide face masks if people don't have them. You cannot turn someone away if they don't have one. That was a question. So I guess we would have to provide if someone doesn't come with their own face mask. Trying to think what else. We were discussing maybe having more shifts of people working, so they're not there all day. Probably not providing lunch and dinner and breakfast like we usually do, having them go sit in a little room together. So there's still a lot that we have to discuss and come up with a really good plan. Andrew, anything else that we talked about at that?
Yeah, I know we had to discuss too, you know, having the ballots placed on the in the ballot booths, so that way after they register, they go right to the booth with the ballot there, fill it out, and then drop it in. And then once they've done that, then somebody comes in, sanitizes the ballot area, and puts a new ballot down.
Right. I think so. That's, you know, depending on how many workers we have, that would be, maybe that's the person that stands usually at the ballot box. They'll go over there and put the ballot. So we won't need 12 booths set up, you know, whatever we think, 3, 4. And then the issue is going to be how many people can we actually let in at a time. So we'll have to have them spaced outside the 6 feet apart, and then determine who can, how many people can come in. I've got a question out to the elections, but haven't been able to get an answer back. If we can have one person that's has a list of all 4 precincts combined, as opposed to 4 separate precincts. But elections wasn't the person I was speaking with wasn't sure if that was something that was doable, and he was going to find out, but I haven't been able to get an answer back from him. So if we could do that, that would make things a lot simpler, I think. We would need a lot less people, but again, just have to check in what rules and regulations the state's going to have on that.
Thanks, here. In relation to town hall, just to kind of go through, I know that's been discussed as they reopen the government, they'll be doing it in phases. So just as an overview of kind of what we're looking at, you know, without going to specific department, phase by phase, basically phase 1, we'd be looking at implementing once the governor decides to finally lift the ban on non-essential businesses, but with restrictions. And on that, we'd be looking to keep the doors locked, but continue to but allow then residents to come in by appointment only as needed. Continue the face mask policy as we had implemented. Allow or provide nitrile gloves for all department employees that do have regular interactions with the public. Ensure that all offices do have hand sanitizer. Try to stagger work where possible to 1 person per office. And then all surfaces that were sterilized at the end of we sterilize all the offices at the end of the workday and maintain the social distancing of 6 feet. Go into phase 2 a lot, you know, once those restrictions are starting to loosen on the businesses, we then, you know, kind of unlock the town hall doors. Still encourage the townspeople to come in by appointment only, but at least try to, you know, I guess keep people from flooding in all at once. Try to maintain the face mask policy. You know, try to continue to provide hand sanitizer, gloves, allow more people in the office where feasible, and then we could look at continuing with in-person meetings where practical as well. And then the next trigger would be removal of all the restrictions, and at that point we'd be looking at you know, still trying to maintain PPE as whatever the CDC recommendation is at that time, and then fully restoring ourselves back to in-person meetings and being fully open to the public. So that's kind of the generalization of the 3 phases that we're looking at right now for implementation from a town hall perspective.
Thank you, Andrew. Anyone have any questions for Andrew?
No, nice job, Andrew and Karen.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing none, Andrew, I suppose we should move on to the proclamation, number 3.
All righty. So the board is being asked by the parent/parent Professional Advocacy League for a proclamation which is attached declaring Children's Mental Health Week, May 3rd through 9th, 2020. What is the board's wishes on the request?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Through the chair, should we read the proclamation for the people that are listening?
Andrew, would you? Do we have it?
Yep, I got it right here. All right. Whereas the citizens of Charlton value their health and mental health of their families, therefore they are proud to support observances such as Children's Mental Health Week. And whereas 50% of children and youth ages 6 through 17 with a mental health condition, and 50% of all lifetime instances of mental illness begin before age 14. And even some children and youth with the most intense needs and some who are insured may not receive services. And whereas children and youth with mental health needs in elementary, middle, and high school are more likely to be bullied, absent, suspended, expelled, or fail to graduate. And whereas recognizing the early warning signs of mental health needs and obtaining the necessary support, assistance, and treatment gives children and youth better opportunities to lead full and productive lives at home, in school, and in their communities. And whereas the involvement and partnership of family members in the assessment and treatment of children and youth is essential to positive outcomes. And whereas our nation's future depends on the health and well-being of its families and their children. And whereas Children's Mental Health Week was developed by the families of children with emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs to focus on the needs of their children and families, and celebrating this year's theme, Vision for Health and Happiness, it is fitting to increase public awareness among all Charlton citizens for this important issue. Now, therefore, by a vote of the Charlton Board of Selectmen on April 28th, 2020, do hereby proclaim May 3rd through 9th, 2020 as Children's Mental Health Awareness Week.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll do this by a roll call vote. You're all out of order now. Ms. Noble,
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Who changed? There's Karen's back on top again. I don't know what happened. She must have blocked out her camera for a minute. Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. So the next item then would be the 2020 DPW Guardrail Bid Award. Andrew?
Yep. On April 16th, 2020, bids were received for the 2020 guardrail bid. DPW Superintendent Jerry Foskett has reviewed the bids and is recommending the following items be awarded to Premier Fence LLC, 1010 Turnpike Street, Canton, Mass. Item number 1, guardrail removal and reinstall, $25.75 per linear foot. Item number 2, guardrail removal and installation, $34.80 per linear foot. Guardrail installation, $32 per linear foot. Item number 4, 50-foot MSKT end treatment, $5,100 per unit. Item number 5, terminal buffer end, $150 per unit. All of these are the low bids for each, and I would agree and recommend the board award as requested.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, through the chair.
John?
Andrew, I just want to reemphasize maybe with the chief and also with Jerry. As you can see, with the pricing on the unit pricing on these things, it really behooves us to make sure that we are documenting any accidents that have damage to the guardrail, and it doesn't matter if it's twisted or just you know, a severe accident, but any dents or anything, or any of the posts that are moved, because as you can see, if we don't document who did it so that we can recover it from their insurance company, we're on the hook for this. And once we know that we have a damaged guardrail, it is on us to replace it, because if something else happens there, and God forbid somebody gets severely injured because we haven't replaced the guardrail, we're on the hook. So, you know, that's just one thing I would like to reiterate that with Jerry and with the chief. I know they both do, you know, try to do a good job with this, but when the officers are making up their accident report, they have to make sure that they document it and they let us know that it's damaged.
Thank you, John. That's actually good information to know. Anybody else have any comments or questions? No? Do we have a motion and a second?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, by roll call vote, Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Noble,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Andrew, can you check your audio? Just making sure everyone can hear you okay?
Yep, test 1, 2. Can you hear me?
Yep, Andrew, you're good.
Okay.
Yep, perfect.
Maybe I was covering my mic before. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you. Number 5, the 2020 Materials Bid Award.
All right. On April 16th, 2020, bids were received and opened for the 2020 materials bid. After review of bids, DPW Director Jerry Foskett is recommending the following bids be awarded. Item number 1, bituminous concrete type number 1 in place at $71.14 per ton to Mass Broken Stone, 332 Sawyer Hill Road, Berlin, Mass. Last year's bid was awarded to Mass Broken Stone in the amount of $68.88 per ton. Item number 2, full depth pavement reclamation with the application of 1 gallon of liquid calcium chloride as per square yard, all grading included at a cost of $2.32 per square yard to Murray Paving and Reclamation, Inc. of Holliston, Mass. Last year's bid award was awarded to Murray Paving and Reclamation in the amount of $2.16.9 per square yard. And item number 3, stone seal, double stone seal, and 10% asphalt rubber surface treatment. Stone seal at $2.50 per square yard, double stone seal at $4.45 per square yard, and asphalt rubber at $3.55 per square yard to Allstate Asphalt, Inc., Sunderland, Mass., P.O. Box 10375. Last year's bid was awarded to Allstate's Asphalt for stone seal at $2.45, double stone seal at $4.35, and asphalt rubber at $3.50 per square yard. All of these are low bids for each item, and I would agree and recommend the board approve as requested.
So
Thank you,
moved.
Andrew.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? No, hearing none, by roll call vote, Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Ms. Noble,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Okay, number 6, discuss negotiation process. This also shouldn't take that long. Ms. Puke and I had a discussion about who should be involved in the contract negotiation discussions and who or when and at what point. She had asked if we put this on the agenda, so we did.
All right, go ahead and read the memo, Diff, or do you want to just go right into discussion?
Oh, wait, is there a memo here? Hold on.
I just provided one that just provided some guidance from.
Okay, sorry. I had to scroll down.
No problem.
You want to read it?
Yeah, I got it. During recent negotiations, there had been some miscommunication that had occurred within the board in relation to expected process for contract negotiations. At the request of the chair, this discussion is relative to the expectation of what process should be followed and who should be involved in any contractual negotiation. Attached, please find some guidance from our general counsel relative to who should be part of the review team on any contract negotiation, along with municipal guidance from the MMA relative to contract negotiations. It's expected that the process agreed by the board would be followed on all future contract negotiations.
Thank you, Andrew. So no one's going to talk. So basically what the question revolves around is, and we went through this with the chief and we're about to go through this with the other chief and our finance director. And it was my opinion that contract negotiations are fully under the authority of the Board of Selectmen. And because they are obviously executive session content, that the only people who should be involved in those contract negotiations are the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, the person we're negotiating with, and potentially legal counsel to look over legal documents until things become public knowledge. A member of the board didn't agree with me and felt that another department head who handles finance should be involved. My position was, if we're discussing $250,000, $500,000, $1 million contracts, we certainly bring our financial team in. But for $3,000 impacts on a multi-million-dollar budget, if we were to have them come in for every $3,000 or $4,000 item we discussed, the board would basically be giving up its authority and would never get anything done without having to consult with our financial team over every time we spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 or $4,000. So it's come before the board to find out, you know, at what point or what contracts or what negotiations do we bring in other people, other department heads, financial teams, et cetera. Should they or should they not be involved? And if so, at what point? And so
Through the chair,
Ms. Dweck,
can you hear me?
you're breaking up a little bit.
I want to, I can't hear, like David, you really were breaking up that time, and it must be my end because I think everyone else can hear. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's better there.
You better.
Karen, it's better there.
Yeah, Karen, whatever you just did, it made it a little better.
Okay, so you can hear me right now. I'm not moving, yes?
Yeah, don't move.
All right. So again, I apologize. I didn't hear everything you said, David. But so, yes, David and I had a conversation. And one of the things that I wanted to suggest is that we come up with more of a standardized process for negotiations. And I know Andrew had looked into best practices from the MMA and consulted with our town council. And I think it's in the best interest of the town, the employee, of everyone, to have a negotiating team like the MMA suggests, because again, it's not about a few $1,000s. There's implications to what we're doing, creating an entire contract, short-term and long-term. And then, of course, we have to be very concerned that we're being fair, because remember what we just went through. So we want to ensure that. And I look to our finance person, much like you would in the private sector, look to your CFO and, you know, the CEO, COO, et cetera. And let's face it, elected officials don't necessarily come in with a set knowledge base, right? We are fortunate because a lot of us have that experience, but I'm looking long-term to ensure that the process is standardized and, again, protects the employee, protects the town, and is kind of something we just fall back to. So I would really like us to, I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at what town council Jim Cosgrove recommended. He gave us several options. I really would like us to go with a team meeting, like the finance director. I know we don't have an HR director right now, but finance director, HR director, town administrator, and then one or two select board members, regardless of what contract, who are working out, you know, the contract we're dealing with in the future. To me, that's the recommendation of the MMA. That's an option provided to us by town council. And quite honestly, it just makes sense.
And thank you, Karen. And my position was, we already do that. When it comes to brand new hires, we were making an outside hire. It's a new position, new employee. We always involve our financial team. We always have a negotiating team, which comprises of one or two selectmen with the TA, et cetera. The issue that brought this up, however, was not an external hire. It's an existing employee. And my position was, we already have a negotiating team, and that is the Board of Selectmen, which is what you're charged with and why you're elected. You're elected to, well, Karen, if you will, the Board of Selectmen, you had your opinion. And my opinion is simply that this is why the people elect the members of the Board of Selectmen. For you to manage this and to conduct these negotiations, and they put their faith in you when they elect you. If they don't have faith in you, they shouldn't elect you. Now, the town does have teams for exactly that. When we meet with existing employees to bargain, it's usually 2 selectmen, the TA, council, and them. We usually never bring in, and never have as far as I know in the history of this town, brought in financial teams to conduct negotiations with existing employees with minimal impact. We always, however, have included them in and on the team, I should say, whenever we are making new hires, or we are talking about $200,000, $500,000, $1 million expenditures, or even brand new hires and we bring in HR. But historically, we've never done that, and they've never been a part of the team when you're dealing with an existing employee. So that's the 2 sides. And if the board have any comments, go ahead, state your feelings.
David, Commissioner,
Yes, Karen.
I can't tell if you're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
So again, I apologize. I heard like every other word, and again, it has to be on my end. So I did hear some of it, and I respectfully disagree with one part in particular, because if you look at our own bylaws, which I did, it actually says that the town administrator, anyone we appoint or hire, the fire chief, police chief, etc., that's part of what he or she should be doing, and their role is making the recommendations. And I go back to, it's not what I think or how I feel. And if you look at our responsibilities as select board members, that yes, we ultimately are the ones who decide we're hiring you or appointing you, but we have to make that decision based on data or metrics, that the information that's always very, very, very fluid and up-to-date information. And who has that is our team, our CEO, our CFO. So to do that in a silo makes no sense. And I go back to, it is not the best practice, and it is not what our own attorney is.
I appreciate that, Karen, but the reality, I appreciate that, Karen, but the reality is what you just stated, we actually already do. And Andrew is involved, the TA, and this is not a new hire. This is simply discussions with an existing employee over an extension that, in this particular case, would affect the budget to the tune of $3,000, $4,000 at best. And if we need to seek advice from financial teams regarding the impact of $3,000 or $4,000 on a budget that's in the millions and millions and millions of dollars, we shouldn't be doing this job. Now, Karen, you've said it, and what I don't want to happen is we go back and forth because one of us doesn't like what we're hearing. The fact is, we have followed the bylaws. Andrew has been involved. We actually have the team exactly to the bylaw you stated. And anytime we make a hire, exactly what you stated we do. But that is not what we've ever done when we're not making a hire. And in this case, we're not making a hire.
It's a brand new contract.
It's a contract negotiation with an existing employee, the tune of which has an impact on our annual budget of around $3,000 to $3,500 per year.
That's false. That if you think that's all it's going to impact, it's not. And that's why we need the others to let us know.
Actually, Karen, it is. And we can go into that in public when we actually are finished with this and it becomes public record. But the fact is, the raise percentage is $4,000 or less per year. The impact on the other parts of the contract don't affect going forward. They come out of the current budget and the money's already there. So my point is, if you don't know this, then that's a problem, because as a selectman, you should know this and shouldn't need a financial person to tell you what these answers are. You already have them.
Again, David, with all due respect, I am going by the recommendation of our town council, of the MMA, and I have yet to see anything produced to back what you are saying, that this is our job and we should not involve any other people for their opinions. It makes no sense. And
the financial director and our financial teams are not charged with contract negotiations, Ms. Biwak.
Look at our bylaws. Look at our bylaws.
Because Ms. Biwak, I'm going to cut it off right here. I've said my piece. I'm not going to say anything. You said your piece. To go back and forth just to hear ourselves speak is not conducive to a meeting.
But I would like to make a motion.
If Ms. Noble has something to say, you can. But if Ms. Noble has something to say, or Mr. McGrath or Mr. Borowski, I will happily entertain that. But I'm not going to sit here while you and I go back and forth during their time and the taxpayers' time watching this, because that's a farce. So if the other selectmen would like to make a comment, they are more than welcome to. Please say so. If not, if Ms. Spiewak wants to make a motion, she can do that as well.
So through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
Okay, so I think that in the negotiations that I've been involved with, which haven't probably been as many as you, David, but I believe that the town administrator always took the lead with negotiating the department heads' contracts, and that either one or two selectmen were involved, usually with the department head. It usually was the chair and whoever else the board wanted to have, get involved with this. And then when the town administrator and the members of the Board of Selectmen had pretty much come to agreement on terms, that it was always reviewed with the financial director at that point in time. The financial director wasn't involved in the direct negotiations, but the financial director or the treasurer or whatever would give you the impact of what this was going to have on the budget, and probably a little bit of a discussion on what the ramifications would be down the road. So I think that we've handled it that way, and of course town council's been involved in it, to verify everything as he did with what we're talking about right now. But I think that if we want to have some sort of structure to it, but I don't believe that the finance director has to be sitting in the meeting with the negotiations with the department head. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mr.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Borowski.
Yeah, I'm with John on this. The way I look at it is, I'm worried that we're having a solution looking for a problem. I think what Attorney Cosgrove laid out is a very straightforward and fair way to approach things, i.e. the town administrator takes lead with one or two selectmen. They have conversations. They basically work through a general framework, talk to the Board of Selectmen and the finance director at that point, and human resources, obviously, to make sure that things are A, financially responsible, B, that there's parity and equity, et cetera. At which point further negotiations go on. Then the board as a whole has a discussion with whatever employee or union or whatever it may be to actually negotiate the final parts of it. And then you take a vote. But I'm with John. Let's put it this way. If I believe certain people should be in an executive session, they'll be invited. But generally speaking, the more people you have in executive session negotiating, the worse off you are, because it turns into something that's not necessary. So again, I think it's just a matter of saying on a go forward, and I'd be curious to see what Select Person Spiewak thinks of. Basically, you start with the town administrator, one or two selectmen. They're the ones who take charge to try to negotiate the skeletal aspects of the contract. And then from there, you involve others as necessary, inclusive of human resources, finance, until it finally comes to a full discussion with the Board of Selectmen to make the final determination. But I'd like to hear, I mean, from what Select Person Spiewak was saying, I mean, I'd like to hear Karen's motion to see, if we can get on the same page, because my guess is, based upon what I read from Attorney Cosgrove, I don't think there's, I mean, if it's anything like that, I don't think we're going to have a lot of debate on it, because it seems pretty straightforward.
It seems as though what we're already doing. So anyone have any other comments? No, Ms. Spiewak?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
So I apologize. Everyone's breaking up. So one of the things I'm heading in I'm on the same page as what many of you are saying. Again, I'm looking for the structure And I'm recommending that we have the TA take the lead, and then we designate one or two at the most, for obvious reasons. We don't want a quorum, we can't go any higher, select board members to do the negotiations. But I do think it's important, as I think the town council, to have the numbers, work closely with the finance director, because she or he, whoever, that they know, they have the numbers.
Yeah.
So I think we need a better structure in place than we do right now. That's all.
Yeah, Karen, through the chair. Karen, I think the only delta is what is the definition of the finance director's involvement? Because if it's a consultative aspect, meaning that he or she is not sitting always in the negotiations, and rather it's the TA along with the Board of Selectmen designees, then yeah, I mean, everything that I'm hearing is that we're basically all saying the same thing. So
Right.
if we need a formal motion to say, policy wise, that all contract negotiations start with the TA and a maximum of 2 board select members, I'll make that right now, Karen, unless you want to make something different.
And for clarification, Mr. Borowski, to your point, I think Karen said the same thing. So I think basically everyone is on the exact same page. And realistically, if you look at what we've done historically and even now, is exactly what has been described by town council. The difference between myself and Ms. Spiewak was, and where I had an issue personally, was involving a department head, in this case, the finance director, in any way, shape, or form in the negotiation process, even as what you're referring to, with another department head right before that department head themselves enters negotiations with this board. So in other words, if we were not about to enter negotiations with that department head as well, I wouldn't have cared if they were involved. But the fact that we're about to do one and then sit down with that department head, having that one just been involved in this is what bothered me. Other than that, everything else you've mentioned and that Karen's mentioned, we already do.
So, Mr. Chairman, and then Vice Chair Spiewak, where do we go from here? Because it sounds like we're all saying the same thing, more or less.
I think, again, it's about putting something in place. So again, I don't know if we want to consider it a policy as we move forward or just a procedure, but it's about ensuring, when all of us are gone, that the next board kind of does the same thing, because it's a best practice in the best interest of the town.
So,
and I
Andrew,
go back to, I know, again, I think Chairman Singer said something about negotiating one contract before the other. Another option to avoid, because once a contract's signed, it's a public document, right? We all
Correct.
know that. We could negotiate all contracts at the same time, or we could do one before the other. There's other workarounds, but all I'm saying is I really look to the finance director, because he or she is the CFO, and I don't want to make a decision unless I know the impact of that decision financially, especially, it should be any time, but especially now. That's all. I want all the information so I can make an informed decision. That's it.
So
Mr.
Andrew,
Chairman, how about this? That I don't know if we need a motion, a procedure, a policy, but it'll be the philosophy of this board that our TA at the time, along with no more than 2 selectmen, are going to enter into contract negotiations, and the final contract will not be reviewed with the full board of selectmen until both human resources and the finance director review and provide their input. Would that make everybody happy?
Sure.
Sure.
So Andrew, do you want to write something up to that?
Yeah, I can
And
do
then
that. That's fine.
So write that up, craft something and bring it back to the board. So put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and we'll have something that we can actually have in writing and vote on it and enact.
Yes, I will have that.
And my only other comment is, Andrew, if you could just cross-reference it with the our town bylaw, because I know it speaks to what we're talking about, to make sure it's
Yep.
consistent.
Yeah, and just so if anyone is watching and knowing, the ongoing procedures have actually followed those guidelines exactly. You've had 2 selectmen that were voted by the board. Your town administrator has been the point of contact, taking care of all of the business. So that has been followed. But we're asking Andrew now to put in writing some sort of actual policy that the board can then vote on at our next meeting.
All right, no problem. I can take care of that.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that's it then. We have Andrew crafting a new, what will be a written policy on our processes for negotiations. The next item would be members, and I'm going to excuse myself from this. For the negotiating teams for both the contracts for the fire chief and the finance director. Since 3 things we have to do, and this all came from our conversation with Donna, was remove from the scale both chiefs and her. And we need to negotiate. This is a long ongoing discussion with the board. You all are aware to have the 3 of them under contract.
Mr. Chairman, I would be happily to help out on the fire chief's contract.
Through the chair,
Mr. McGrath.
I'll, if nobody else wants to, I'll work with Bill on the fire chief contract.
So do we need to have a motion and a second to vote Bill and Mr. McGrath and Mr. Borowski on the fire chief's contract negotiations?
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call vote. Ms. Spiewak,
aye.
Ms. Noble,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Now we need to assign a team for the negotiations with the finance director.
Through the chair,
Ms. Spiewak.
Ms.
Yeah.
Ms. Noble,
a volunteer.
I nominate Deb then.
I can help Deb.
she already volunteered, so.
Well, no, it's even better to nominate at that point.
Too bad we're on
I-
camera, I'd say something.
Yeah, so we have Ms. Noble has volunteered to be one of the 2 select members.
I don't mind helping if you want.
No, I think that'd be great, Karen. We were a good team before when we negotiated the TA contract, so.
Motion for TA Part 2.
Second,
We have a motion and a second for Ms. Noble and Ms. Spiewak to be the 2 selectmen's representatives on the finance director negotiations. Any discussion? No, so we'll do it again by roll call vote. Ms. Spiewak. Ms. Spiewak,
Aye, yes, yes.
Ms. Noble,
Aye.
Ms. Borowski,
Aye.
Ms. McGrath.
aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. And so we will leave it to the 2 teams to coordinate with Andrew and those 2 employees regarding timing and discussions. Andrew, that would move us on to old business.
Actually, sorry, Mr. Chairperson, just a very quick thing.
Yeah.
Thing we can do again, I don't want to say expedite. I know we're all very busy as well as the department heads are, but clearly with June 13th approaching, barring a write-in, there's going to be 2 new members on the board. So anything we can do to like expedite those,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think will certainly help, because if not, I don't want to have to start all over again come June 5th.
No, yeah.
Right, and realistically, I think given that you have a month and a half, should be more than enough, should be ample time to hopefully, get that done for both of these people, both of these employees.
I don't know, Ed's a pain. Oh, wait, was I not on mute?
Oh, please, Bill, don't let your feelings show.
All right, thank you, Mr. Borowski. Yeah, but very, very valid point. So Andrew, we have no old business. Is there anything under other business or no?
Actually,
No, unless you
I
guys
got
have
something.
something.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I got something after everyone else goes, or I go first, either way.
Is there anyone else or just Mr. Borowski? All right, Bill, you're the only one.
Yeah, very quickly, Andrew and I talked about it very, very briefly, and I completely forgot. This is my fault for not reminding him to put it on. It's obviously a very unfortunate period that we're going through, and I know historically we've always had a wonderful Memorial Day event, inclusive of the parade. We have, a bunch of other things. The reality is, as far as I know, we haven't taken an official action to say yay or nay on that yet. So we need to make a determination, basically, that we're not going to have an event this year in May, and that that we should talk with the Veterans Council to see if they want to do it some other time, or roll in an old home day, or something else, or we just proceed as is, which I would highly recommend against. Well,
Mr. Borowski, we could, if we work with the Board of Health, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, both actually very important
Yeah.
days. I would like to see if there's a way for us to still honor Memorial Day and to take care of your concerns, even if it meant it was just the board coming together at the statues where we normally do with the VFW and having a ceremony 6 feet apart, something. It just,
Yeah.
even if you want to have a parade later, but
Yeah.
I think that's just important enough that even if we stood 6 feet apart and we had representatives there to, lay the wreaths and at least see that respect paid.
Mhm. Yeah.
Through the chair.
Something. Oh, I'm sorry,
Ms.
Deb.
Noble.
Okay. I think it's important that we recognize that a lot of the people that we're going to be honoring and that are going to be in attendance
At risk.
are those that are at risk.
Yes.
Yep.
So we need to be very, very aware of that and take that into consideration.
Maybe
I
we
will-
work with them and the Board of Health and just have one
Yes.
rep from the VFW present with a mask on and just lay the wreaths, but have them work with the Board of Health.
Absolutely. That was going to be my recommendation, because these are the folks that are most at risk. So I would like to work closely with the Board of Health to make sure that we can honor them in a safe manner.
So
I
Andrew,
agree.
Yep.
Thank you, John and Deb. Andrew, is there a way you could maybe coordinate this, work with the VFW, work with Matt and Jim, and see if we can get their feelings on how we could pull off some kind of a respectful ceremony while keeping them apart and safe at the same time?
Yeah, I'll work with them on that.
Thank you. I'm with you, Deb. Veterans is a very sensitive subject. All right. Those who served. So Andrew will work on that. The next, I think all we have left then, unless there's something else, and Bill, thank you for that. So yeah, I don't want to neglect Bill's point. Andrew, do they also want to have a parade at a later time, as Mr. Borowski suggested? Even if we do have a smaller ceremony just to pay respects and lay the wreaths, we could still, to Bill's point, have a larger celebration memorial service for them later as well, if they're open to that idea.
All right, I'll see what we can try to pull off.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
You got it, Mr. Borowski. So then our next regular meeting is May 12th, 2020, 6:30 p.m., and it will not be in the Selectmen's meeting room. It will be another Zoom meeting, because we will still be here, as the governor extended us past May 4th today, to May 18th. That being said, we will do this again in 2 weeks via Zoom. Andrew will get an agenda posted and the Zoom address for anyone who wants to participate. Would someone care to read the adjourn to executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session under MGL Chapter 38, Section 21A, Number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and contract negotiations with non-union personnel. If the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and return to open session for any other business and to adjourn.
Thank you. Ms. Borowski, one quick question for you, Andrew.
Yes.
I don't see the need. I mean, something could happen in executive session requiring us to come back into open session. How are we going to do that? Are we going to use this same dial-in?
So I will try to hold this dial in, but I actually have a separate dial in because we're going to executive session to ensure confidentiality.
Right.
So at the end of this one, we'll go out. I'll
We'll
see if
come
I can
back to
just
this.
reuse this meeting ID if we have to go to a second session.
And
Okay, so
yeah,
I was just going to
Mr.
say,
Chairman,
yes, Bill.
sorry, I was going to say, I might want to make the recommendation that realistically, based upon some of our executive session notes and discussions, that we're not going to be making any votes tonight. So it might help if people just understand that, or at least, unless I'm going to be surprised, I don't think we're taking a vote on anything tonight. So
Right. My impression is, if anything, our discussion's just agreeing to hopefully maybe in terms in general, we have to come
Yeah.
back. But then the other part of that question is, and Andrew, even if we had to come out of executive session just to adjourn, given these times, if we're not having a public vote, do we just adjourn and go on, or do we still come back to this meeting room to have a public adjournment?
I would just adjourn and go on.
All right. So
There's only so much, yeah, I mean, there's only so much we can really accommodate.
So I
Just so
guess the
everyone
message
knows,
to the
we're not
public,
going to vote on anything tonight in public session when we come out. So this
Right.
will be it.
right,
You
so the
can also
message to the
vote it at the
public
next
is,
public meeting versus doing it
Yeah.
the same night.
right, so the message to the public is, it's highly unlikely we're gonna come back out. You can watch this address, but I don't think we'll be coming back out. I don't foresee any action being taken tonight.
Right.
All right, so then by roll, Ms. Noble.
Just to let you know, the participants are already starting to go away.
Okay, all right, so by roll call vote. I don't know where Ms. Spiewak went. Ms. Noble.
I'm here.
Aye.
Oh, there you are. Okay,
I'm
Ms.
here.
Noble,
Aye.
Mr. Borowski,
Aye.
Ms. Spiewak,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath.
Aye.
I don't know why they leave and come back, but John's still on the bottom of the picture tile. So chair votes aye.
Low
Motion
man.
carries. Motion carries unanimously. We are now in executive session and adjourned. I will meet you guys in the other room momentarily.
All right. See you guys in a minute.
So
Bye, everybody.
are we logging off and then going back with the other ID?
The other
Yes.
idea.
Yes, Karen, to the other room, the other virtual room.
Cool.
With another ID, right?
Yes,
Remember me,
yeah.
not tech savvy.
No, Karen.